Hi everyone, welcome back to Canary Cast. Myself and Jacob are joined this week by Stuart Hodge, or Hodgey. You'll recognise him from various Norwich commentaries. You'll recognise him from the Athletics podcast, On the Ball. Hodgey, how you doing, my man?
Not too bad, mate. It's all over now. While the singing and dancing. Romance it back to the championship, mate. That's the move. And I can't say I'm too upset, really. I've got over it now. It's a bit like a relationship you don't really care about that much. And that's how I feel about the Premier League.
You're better off out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those that was going a bit sour. You know what I mean? It's headed for divorce anyway, so better to get out before the domestic violence starts. Amy Buendia's red card.
Yeah.
I jest, by the way. I jest. I joke.
Jacob, how you doing?
Yeah, mate. I think Hodgey's put it perfectly. The last kind of few weeks, few games, really. It's just been a slow death, hasn't it, really? And it's just great to kind of look forward now. I think the signing have helped with that, and we'll go on to that later. But yeah, happy to kind of be looking forward rather than back at their kind of dismal campaign.
Agreed. Okay, the general plan is we'll talk briefly about Man City, and then we're going to have a bit of a vent about the season, what we liked, what we didn't like, where it went wrong, all that sort of stuff. We'll start with Man City. A fairly predictable result in the end, Hodgey. What did you make of it?
Do you know what I was invested in storyline-wise in that game was the fact it was David Silva's last game. Now, personally, the Man City thing, experiment, whatever you want to call it, I don't like the fact that just coming in with such financial backing automatically takes a team who, at one point in the 90s, the late 90s, were in League One, or as it was then, Division 2, and suddenly they're this kind of global superpower team. I don't really like the way that that's kind of come together, and I haven't been a fan of the whole Man City thing. That said, David Silva and players like Vincent Kompany and that before him have distinguished themselves in the way that they've been. They've been great professionals. They've really been part of what some of the good in the modern Premier League. I'm probably going to talk quite a bit about the bad. But yeah, that was the narrative I was invested in, because Norwich City stay in the Premier League was over, and I'm just looking forward to leaving it behind, really.
Yeah. Jake, we thought we got off to a decent start. Onel Hernandez banging in the opener that wasn't to be. What was your general thoughts on the game?
Well, I saw a perfect tweet, mate. I can't remember the guy's name, but fair play to him. It was, see Norwich City go 1-0 up, go for a cup of tea, come back, and went 1-0 down.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, perfect summary.
It was unlucky for Hernandez, because I think it's probably fair to say he's been one of the better players post-lockdown, Jacob.
No, yeah, 100%. Obviously, I think Daniel Farke and everyone watching him, even himself, he doesn't know what he's going to do with it. But when he does kind of hit the target or go through a few players, you're like, go on that final bit. It was a lovely finish, wasn't it? Against the top quality Edison, who he's won Golden Glove now this season, hasn't he? And he hit it early enough to kind of surprise him. Yeah, fantastic finish. And you're like, oh, crikey, here we go again. And then you get the lines, the protractors, the rulers all out, and you're like, oh, he was offside, but I'm looking forward to leaving.
Honestly, Pukki all over again. I remember the Spurs game. I was working a shift at Sky Sports during that Spurs game, and I almost had to step away from the desk for 5 minutes, because I'm just like, is this what football's become? Football's become mathematics, and I didn't even like that side of maths. You know what I mean? I don't mind adding up and maybe doing a wee bit with triangles, but when you start bringing vectors and stuff into it, away you go. And that's where I sort of stand on it. The Pukki thing enraged me then, and I'm now just at the stage where I'm like, done with it. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to analyse it to that extent, where's the fun? Where's the moment of ecstasy? Like when you score a goal, it's like, can we celebrate? Oh no, we can't. And there was a few times at Carrow Road this season where you were like that when Norwich City scored. It's like, oh, is it going to be chopped off? So that momentary wow that you used to get with football, gone. Bye.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm sorry, Joe. Yeah, I completely agree with that, Hodgey, because me and Joe were both at the Tottenham game when Dermot scored, and obviously absolute limbs. But I had that moment. I thought for 2-3 seconds, oh, is he offside? And just completely takes it away, doesn't it? It takes the emotion away, and it kind of shows that the Premier League and all of that, it's obviously all about the money. They don't care enough about the fans compared to getting the right result. And to be fair, you could say, does it get the right result? You look at, I know obviously over a 38-game season, Bournemouth weren't good enough, but you look at the Villa and goal line technology, and well, realistically, they should be down.
Yeah, and now there's going to be a court case, which, I mean, to be honest, I don't think Bournemouth stand much of a chance of winning that. But at the same time, right, the bit that got me about that is, right, yeah, Hawkeye doesn't work, right? So that's an outrage in itself, right? And you've got Hawkeye not working. Then you've got this thing that's designed to, like, be a fail-safe, you know? And they don't even consult it, which I think if you want, like, something that sums up just how ineffective VAR has been, the fact they didn't go to it with that goal, I think the whole thing and the way the Premier League has administrated it has been an absolute disgrace. And you're absolutely spot on, Jacob. The fan enjoyment of the game, the fan experience it's totally degraded it, because, I mean, think of the amount of time at Carrow Road this season that's been spent waiting for a decision, right? Like, I mean, the amount of time, that's time that you're paying for with your hard-earned cash as a season ticket holder, you know? And the fact that that is now just accepted as part of the fan experience in the Premier League, I kind of struggle to see how a certain older breed of football fans are still going to remain as invested in the game. One of the reasons I cover basketball now is because I became tired of loads of the things about football that were annoying me. And I can definitely see the potential for more fans to drift to other sports, because it's just not as much fun anymore.
Good stuff, lads. If that's the last we hear of VAR on Canary Cast, I will be very happy. But back to the Man City game. I think Man City's class showed in the end, didn't it? I think especially in Kevin, you could see the difference between the two teams. I mean, some of the KDB goals were class, weren't they, Hodgey?
What a player. Yeah. Unbelievable footballer. And you know that way, like, even at these big clubs, you look at the kind of passing of the mantle. You know, who's taking the baton next? And slightly different kind of players like him and David Silva. I would actually argue that Kevin De Bruyne is more gifted, which is saying something. But he's just a special player, man. Like, it's impossible not to like the way that he plays the game. It's that combination of vision and dynamism that is, like, it's pretty unique in even in the modern game, I think. And the two-footedness, the fact he can shoot with such power and venom, yet he can also finish with, like, sort of deft little dinks, you know. Brilliant footballer. And I expected us to take a severe doing, and we did. And Man City did it in a classy way. And it's going to be interesting to see how they roar back next season, because they'll have been hurt by the way this season turned out.
Yeah. I would imagine they'll be back and better as well. The only other thing I wanted to talk about with the Man City game is the Pukki chance, Jacob. I mean, that's one of the chances where he goes through on goal, and last season we would have been celebrating before he'd even pulled the trigger. You know, that's a gift for him usually. Really didn't trouble Edison that much, did he?
I don't think even he believed he was going to score there, mate. I think the whole premise of his game, the runs he's making are good. I think he's making the correct runs, but his finishing last season was instinct, wasn't it? There's so many games last season. I can just think of Ipswich off the top of my head, that left-footed finish where he put past the account. It's a fantastic finish. And then you think, this year, there's just been so many times. I know the foot injury, you'd imagine he'd been playing with a numb foot and it's not there, but the confidence gone from him now. I think it's about 21 games where he's not scored from open play, which kind of summarises it all up, really. Yeah, a long time.
I think that's Leicester away.
Yeah, 2 penalties obviously against Tottenham and Bournemouth aside. Yeah, hasn't scored. So, yeah, I think he just needs a complete restart in the summer. Another month just to kind of get himself back to get the correct headspace, get himself ready for the challenge, because let's not forget Euros at the end of this season as it stands, and he needs to fly Finland to a respectable pace, really, doesn't he? That should be his aim as well as championship.
Listen, that'll be the highlight of his career. I don't think there's any doubt about that, unless he wins a Champions League or something. You know, like, I mean, that is going to be absolutely the highlight of that guy's career. And I feel really sorry for him on a personal level that he's not had the chance to do that this summer, because he was really gearing up towards it. But one of the things that sticks out for me is how different is Teemu Pukki's season, and maybe to a lesser extent Norwich City's as a whole, if that Spurs saga doesn't happen. You know, because that was a period, that seemed to be the turning point for Teemu, like where just after that, it was like the confidence went and things kind of dried up. And it's such a shame for him personally. But those comments that the Finland manager made about him maybe moving from Norwich being the best thing for him, I'm not going to make myself a popular man for saying this, but I can see where he's coming from, because a fresh start is exactly what Teemu Pukki would need at this point in time. And I can see what the Finland manager's thinking. He's already proved that he can do it in the Championship for Norwich City. And I could definitely, I mean, at the stage in his career that he's at, say the chance comes along to play European football for a team in the Champions League maybe, you couldn't begrudge Teemu wanting to move. You know, I mean, he'll still have been the best free transfer in the club's history, probably. Oh, yeah. And that's, I think I can see why it might be of benefit to him to move on. And maybe Norwich City just to freshen things up. Not saying that I don't want Teemu Pukki at the club, but I mean, it's one of them. Confidence is quite hard to find. You've just got to hope, if he does stay, that he hits the ground running next season. But you've got Josip Drmic there. I think he's here to stay, by the way. And Adam Ida is really exciting. And I'm all for the young players coming through. I can understand why he didn't get more game time either before the end of the season. It's probably more about protecting a young player while the team are playing so drastically poorly. But I think it's going to be interesting next season to see how that turns out. And I can kind of see why it would be of in Teemu's interest to potentially move.
If he did stay, Hodgey, can you see him banging in another 30-odd goals or not?
I can definitely see him hitting 20. Yeah. I think, I mean, his goal-to-game ratio, despite how it's not been great at the latter end, post-lockdown, whatever, is still really, really good on paper, even now. And I think it all comes down, it was a bit like, I said with Project Restart, right? I said if we got 4 points from the first 2 games, we'll probably stay up. And then we just, like, the collective backside collapsed. Yeah. And that was the problem. And I think the same is true of how Pukki starts next season. Pukki starts next season with sort of 3-4 games without a goal. It could be a hard campaign for him. Scores 1 in the first game, then he's maybe getting 2 or 3. You know, it's like it's fine margins. And strikers are more than any other position in the field absolutely confidence players. And I felt so sorry for him. Like, loads of fans might have been giving him jip for the sort of way that kind of transpired in the City game. But I thought, like, my feeling on it is more just like, I feel sorry that it's got to that point for him, and I wish him all the best because he's a really, really good pro and a nice guy.
Yeah. Right, that's the City game done then. So Norwich end the season on 21 points with 5 wins, 6 draws, 27 losses, just 26 goals for, 75 against. That's a minus 49 goal difference.
Painful.
Lads, I'm just going to suggest themes we talk about and get your thoughts on them. Just where we think it's gone wrong, where it's gone well, if there has been an area. Where I want to start is the goals for column, because we scored 93 goals in the Championship, just 26 this year. That's a difference of 67 goals. Jacob, that is an awful lot of goals, mate.
Yeah, and I think it's down to belief and quality. Last season, obviously, you can document how many late goals, and I think our system relies on confidence. You look at Emi Buendia, Todd Cantwell, Ronald Fernandez, whoever's behind Pukki up front. They need the confidence to kind of not pull a rabbit out of the hat, but they do need to do a lot of on their own, because the 2 behind are defensive sitters, realistically, aren't they? So you've got to have that magic to either play through Teemu Pukki, who you then relying on confidence-wise to finish the chances, or to take the chances yourself. And obviously, I think we've struggled in a lot of the games in terms of possession and that turnover. I don't think there's been enough of a plan B. I know you could state injuries for that, but since Project Restart, I know obviously we started the Southampton game with 2 up front that did not work at all. I don't think there's been enough flexibility there, and you do have to kind of look at the coaching staff and see why that is the case, why we couldn't have potentially looked at changing our tactics to teams this season. But
see, I don't know. I disagree with that. I think Daniel Farke has actually gone the other way. I think he's tried 3 different systems at least post sort of restart. None of them have worked to varying degrees. I think he's tried too much to change it. I mean, the 4-4-2 experiment happened, and like you had a 4-4-2 getting played, and players. I remember there was one instance in that game in particular. Jamal Lewis is running up the line, right, and because he's so conditioned to think find a yellow jersey, he turned back and passed it back to, I think it was Tim Closer, the centre back, and I was just like, my goodness, there's 2 strikers, launch it into the box, you know. Like, and I think it's that tactical naivety from the players as much as the coaching staff, because I think the coaching staff have tried with the resources that they've had. I think, to be honest, more so post-restart and probably too much then. And then you could say probably not enough before that. I think it's been, I don't think the balance has been quite right, but I don't think you can say they haven't tried at all. The problem for me is tactical naivety of a young squad, a squad that lacks the quality to compete at this level. But the big one for me is physicality. I mean, this is a league of physical monsters. And Norwich City last season came up playing a brand of football that wasn't in any way based on the physical attributes of the players. It was a beautiful, artistic style of football where the whole Farke ball sort of philosophy and idea came from. And I think what it does is, and I've mentioned this before elsewhere, is it shows how good we were and how beautiful our football was last season, that we were able to transcend the physicality of the Championship. And I think trying to then do the same in the Premier League, where the physicality is off the scale, we've just been bullied and we've not had the quality. And I thought at the start of the season, there was a few things that I expected to happen. So at the start of the season, I thought we would leave with at least 3 or 4 players that would get big moves, right? Obviously, you can't account for COVID, but I thought we would have 3 or 4 players, Emi Buendia being one, who would definitely get a big move to a big team, improve his worth. But for all Emi Buendia and the chance he's created that everyone goes on about, I think he's been directly liable for 7 or 8 goals this season that we've conceded. And the kind of dirty side of the game, the tactical side of the game, and also his petulance at the end of the season there, it's not improved. And the fact that that is the case, that is what he should have been improving on this season. And I don't think his value's gone up as a player. I think it's either stayed the same or gone down, which is remarkable, given that he's had a season of Premier League football. So that was one of the things I predicted. I thought Emi Buendia and a few others might leave for big money. That's not happened because nobody's played themselves into a move. The other thing I thought would happen is, I thought we might come down. I thought we might come down conceding a lot of goals, but I thought we would have scored goals. And if you look at it, the only 2 players that were even moderately prolific, you had Pukki at one point and Todd Cantwell was scoring a few goals. Other than that, where were they coming from?
Yeah.
And there's not been a consistent goal threat in the team all season. And I think that's where the criticism can come about the January recruitment, because I don't think that was addressed enough in January. And I was still surprised we didn't buy another defender. I asked Stuart Webber about it in my podcast. He explained his reasons, and I totally get that. I think Stuart's a top operator, but I think and he has admitted the recruitment wasn't good enough, but it was the areas that were targeted that I would maybe just kind of sort of say maybe it could have been done differently as well.
You alluded to recruitment there, Hodgey. It leads me on nicely because we do need to speak about it. I know Stuart Webber's come out, and we doff our cap to him as well. That's fair play for coming out, take some balls, so fair play. But it wasn't really good enough, was it, Jacob? I mean, let's discuss the summer. Of the summer transfers, I mean, in my opinion, I think probably only Sam Byram had a positive effect on the squad.
Yeah, well, I guess. Yeah, sorry, or do you go?
No, I was just nodding.
Oh, sorry. So I think from the past, since Webber's been here, Grant Hanley aside, I'd say every single sign we've made has been a gamble, realistically. I think you could say, in terms of going into the league, do they have experience in the league, foreigners? You could say, no. Teemu Pukki aside, again, was in form. Emi Buendia did show sparkles, but again, you've still got to rely on them being able to fit the format of the league and going from there. This season, like you say, it hasn't been good enough. Sam Byram, whilst good, can you rely on his fitness? I'm not too sure.
No, that's a really good point, actually, just to add on that. The only other one I would maybe say is, having watched a lot of Scottish football, was Kenny McLean. I was quite sure would do all right. But other than that, you're absolutely right. It's players coming from different countries, different climates, different stages in their career. But I think that's testament to the power of Norwich City scouting network, with the likes of Kieran Scott and Stuart Webber in charge of the whole operation at the club. I think that's what we do. We unearth gems. And when you think of the value that's been just created by plucking players from nowhere, I expect Sorensen to be a 20 million quid midfielder this time next year. I've got no doubts about that, because I trust in the recruitment and I think he'll be a good player. But the problem for Norwich City is, going into this season, we need to freshen the squad up. It's about getting bodies out as well. It's not just who you bring in, it's about who you get out. And when you think of the likes of the Moritz Leitners, the Marco Stiepermans, the ones that haven't been playing as much as they might have done, that's where you begin to say, I mean, how hungry would you feel if you were a player and you'd worked hard, you'd won a title in the Championship, right? More so Stieperman here than Leitner, right? But you did that, and then you were a bit part player when you went up. I mean, that might be quite sort of demoralised a wee bit. So what you've got to wonder is how you reinvigorate that hunger. And that's Daniel Farke's job. And Stuart Webber's job is to bring in new bodies, because that just kind of happens if you think in any sort of collective, be it like a creative thing or in football and sport. If you get new energy into the room or into the collective, the body of people, then it energises everyone. And that's the idea behind the new signings. But at the same time, you can't just have loads of people hanging around like a bad smell. You need to make sure you move bodies on. And my understanding is that there's going to be quite a lot of squad movement this summer, and to the point that it might surprise people.
Yeah, I think this is now going to be Farke's fourth season, right? So it's probably about time for a freshen up anyway. Who are your sort of Hodgey? Who do you think's on the chopping block?
What, in terms of like naming names of players?
Yeah, who's like your top three? Who do you really fancy to be shipped off this summer?
Who do I want or who do I expect?
Expect.
I think the defence will stay pretty much the same, unless you're talking about players that are kind of lurking in the background. So you've obviously got a few players that haven't really played much. But if we're talking, so you've got the Michael McGoverns and the Moritz Leitner types who haven't really played. But players that I expect who may move on that people might not expect, Mario Vrancic, I think, might have come to the end of his time at Norwich City, because I think he's one of those midfielders. He does a job, but I think we need midfielders that can cover more ground, maybe less technically minded. So I think that might be a surprising one. And what I'm talking about is players here who I think might move, not ones who we get a big money bid that we can't necessarily refuse. I think he'd be the main one, actually, that might surprise people. I think it will be in the midfield area, because that's where we've most heavily recruited. So Tom Tribal's another one that I think might be on his way. By the way, just to caveat this is just my thoughts. I don't have any gen on that regard. This is just my thoughts. There's no sort of journalistic digging has gone on about this. This is just my personal thoughts. And then I think I could probably only pick those two as the ones that I would say, I think those are the ones that will actively, other than the ones that are just kind of sitting in the sidelines being like, those are the ones that I think actively you'll be trying to move on.
Yeah. Jacob, one last thing I want to talk about this season is the amount of games we've thrown away after half-time, after we've been leading. I think Sheffield United, Wolves, there's others. But I don't like using the term we bottled it, but we did in certain games, didn't we? Or a lot of games, actually.
Perfectly put. Well, you look at last season. We gave chances away last season. We conceded a lot of goals last year.
57, I think it was.
Well, yeah, and you look at it and you say, this year, the step up, you do get punished. We are naive. Even in that Leicester game, I can remember, I said it time and time again on this podcast, that Ian Atcher goal, for example, where are Aarons and Lewis? They're both bombing forward, and you only have Godfrey and his defensive partner next to him, and you're thinking, crikey, we are so bare and so open. If Leicester were better on that night, they would have won that game. You can probably say about every game we've won. Probably you can say the team had good chances. So at the end of the day, mate, it was in the back of our minds last season, wasn't it? In terms of we do have a defensive weakness there, and we've just been punished this year by better teams.
Do you think, Jacob? Do you think we'll see any sort of tactical tweak from Farke for next season? Do you think we'll prepare for the Championship season in the way that we would a Premier League season, so that if and when we do go up, we can sort of, the blueprint can remain the same, and perhaps we'll find a tactic that is more effective in the top flight, but get promoted with it in the Championship? Can you see that happening?
I think bigger than the formation, mate, is to change that mentality. Let's not forget we've lost 11 games on the bounce now, and to change that back into a side that dominates possession and wins games, that's very difficult. And I think that's difficult to kind of put across to every fan, is that, that confidence is literally on the floor. It couldn't be any worse right now. And to get those players, again, like Hodgey said, motivated as well to climb that mountain. As Daniel Farke said time and time again, we are underdogs in the Premier League, and again in the Championship. Realistically, we are going to be nowhere near the biggest spenders. So again, it's going to be a massive challenge, and get that team motivated to go again and beat teams consistently, because we know it's a dogfight in the Championship Saturday, Tuesday. To want to do it, I think that's the biggest challenge, rather than the formation and tactics in particular at the start of the season.
I'll back us in the Championship to be good in the big games. But it's the hunger when you go to places like Luton away, games like that. By the way, that's on my bucket list, to go to Kenilworth Road. Yeah. I've got to say that's one I want to go to. But I mean, I think of the season that I was the commentator, and there was performances like the time Tim Closer and that horrible, I don't know what you would call it. It was like a 1970s wallpaper third strip. He sold the jerseys at Burton Albion away, and games like that are the ones where that kind of determines how your Championship fate goes. If you're a team of a certain calibre, as we are, really. And that's what's going to decide how we do next season. It's not how we play in the big games against the teams that have come down with us, the teams that we expect to be fighting at the top. Probably Brentford will be again if they don't go up. And also how we do in the kind of the schoolyard kind of fight sort of bit. Like the Cardiff's sort of Neil Harris's hardened Cardiff team, like, how are we going to perform against that? Because the physicality of the Premier League has troubled us, and what we did is we elevated beyond that the season before with a beautiful style of football. But as you guys rightly pointed out, still conceding loads of goals. But what happens when we go back down and it's like you've got to go over that course again, and you've still got these brutes like Glatzel like bullying you, And that's what's going to be the determining factor next season. But I've said this in a few places and I'll say it again. What Norwich City have to do is they need to come out the blocks. There's no room for a slow start. Even in the title season, we had a really slow start, because I can remember after we got beat off Leeds at home, and at that point I thought Daniel Farke's 2 or 3 bad results away from being on a pretty shaky nail, like his coat. And after that, like after I said that, obviously that was the catalyst for everything to change. And yeah, there's no room for a slow start next season, because it's going to be harder to go over the course. So I think we're relying on reinvigorating that. And you're right, Jacob, about sort of lifting the team. But what I've heard is that the atmosphere in the camp, if you can imagine this, despite the run of defeats, the professionalism still there, the dedication still there, and there's nobody sulking or moping about, which, I mean, there's an argument to be made that they bloody well should be, given how it's going. But I think they know that they've got to start running next season. And yeah, see if Norwich go the first 4 or 5 games without a win, then I think at that point the pressure becomes too much and there's a change of head coach. I really do.
Yeah, I think a quick start is imperative. But
just quickly turn on that, like you say about Hodgey, the atmosphere and stuff. For me, and I think a few other fans, when I've been watching the games, I wouldn't say that team is fully together. And I would say since the restart, for me, watching Norwich, well, after the last couple of years, when you go a goal down, you believe they can come back. Since the restart, for me, it's been a team full of, not individuals, but a team that just do not believe and kind of been going through the motions for me, personally.
Do you think that was the case before the first two games, or do you think it was after the first two games of the restart? Because that's when I think it hit the floor after Southampton.
No, yeah. But before lockdown, I was obviously, like I said, went to Tottenham, met numerous other games, and I still thought, you know what, we've been unlucky. Naive, yes. We haven't given up in games. There's been a difference in quality, sure, but I can never say that team's given up. Like you say, that Southampton game, to be honest, in a strong word, disgusted me. I don't know if it was the fitness or just the belief, but they rolled over there. The second game as well, like I said, I remember Everton, they played very averagely. I can just remember Michael Keane walking onto that corner, headed it in. That kind of summarised the whole game. Like you say, you gain confidence, but for me, I think you've always got to put a fight into games. And you went back to the Emi Buendia petulance against Burnley. I think that kind of summed it all up. Was there the right kind of desire there, rather than just silly petulance or, again, Dermich going flying in against Burnley? I don't think there was the right attitude there for the final 7 games if you're not counting the first 2 for me.
That's interesting. I can see where you're coming from, and it's always hard, like, to tell what things are like in a dressing room. The noises I'm hearing is that there is still a togetherness there, but I'll tell you what, time will tell. Because if there's any sort of fractured relationship there, then it will be seen and evidenced on the pitch when we start the whole toil of the championship in 6 weeks' time, if that. So that's going to be where it's going to come to the crunch. For the first time, right, Stuart Webber is under pressure. Daniel Farke is under pressure. And these players are under pressure because ever since Farke's came in, first season, it was like, right, it's a transition, benefit of the doubt, all of that. Second season, it's like, oh, wow, what's happened here? You know, like, this is magnificent, brilliant, let's just ride the wave. Third season, it's like, we've not spent anything. People understood the reasons for not spending anything. I think we did the right thing, not risking the financial future of the football club. I'm absolutely glad that we've not done that thing where we've thrown 100 million up a wall just to go back down anyway, potentially. Yeah. But at this point, it's like we've gone down, and particularly the nature of the way that the team has performed since the whole project restart is like everyone. I mean, the morale of the fan base is on the floor at the moment. It's been lifted slightly with the recent signings, but I think it's like everyone's got the thing that, yeah, you've won a title, but yeah, you've got to go and prove yourself all over again. You're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as your last 11, you know? Like, you need to go out and you need to prove. And this is fantastic number 12 of the sort of run of defeats that you can go out there and you can win a football match again. And that's not the easiest thing to do, necessarily. But I still have the faith in the recruitment that will get enough positive, like, new energy, new faces, and I think just the change in personnel. I don't think it'll be a change in tactics in terms of the way they go about it particularly, but I think the change in personnel will add dynamism to the midfield, so it'll be less about intricate passing and more about just sort of that going on, shuttling.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to hopefully be, I think that combination, the fact we've got good pros there, we've got good young players there, and talented footballers at the football club, I think is going to be the differentiating factor. And I still back us to finish top 6 in the season that's coming ahead, which you've got to say, a top 6 season's a success next year. I mean, hopefully we go up, but I mean, I don't even like the Premier League anyway, as we've already alluded to, so yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap up, I thought we'd do something a bit more fun. So we're going to just go through like best and worst moments, best goals, worst goal. You know, you get the idea. I'll get one off each of you. Best match. Are we all going to say Man City?
No.
Okay, great. Go on.
Spurs away. What an experience. Aye, the cup game. Like, I think the Man City was like, it's a more historically, even with the way the season went, it's probably a more historically relevant result in loads of ways, but I was at that Spurs game. That stadium is like space age. It's absolutely magnificent. The fact we filled a whole section of it, like, it says everything about the Canary support. The fact that we did that, and what a night I had. Like, it's definitely my favourite away trip as a Norwich fan, because the thing is, a lot of my away trips have been like as part of the press pack, and it's a whole different experience. But as a fan, that was just unbelievable. I loved it, and I will remember that game for the rest of my life. So that's my favourite game this season.
Jacob?
Yeah, I completely agree with Hodgey for exactly the same reasons. We both there, weren't we, Joe? I remember us sitting or standing at half time with our beers saying, we're so close, they're there for the taking, we can just go and get it. And we did, and that Dermich again, that must have been, and then the penalty, where we thought, you know what, we're going to win it. We've got Timmy Krul. And the celebrations afterwards, seeing the players come, and that's why it's so frustrating seeing where they are now, because you can see they all care. And just that emotion, all of that, by 100%, that was definitely the best part of the season for me.
Yeah.
What about you, Joe?
I'm tempted to say Spurs as well, but Man City was class because it was just so unexpected. Like, we had, what was it, like 11 injuries or something as well?
Amadou at centre back.
Yeah,
forgotten.
And that was his debut as well, I think.
Might have been. I think you might be right.
Bones, because Aaron's was injured, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, Byron was marking Raheem Sterling. I remember that, and it was so against the odds that I think I am going to have to go with Man City.
Good
Spurs was a great night, but Man City for the result. Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, worst game. I think Villa at home, personally.
I can see why.
Yeah.
I think maybe Connor Wickham scoring a late goal to deny you a win was nasty. Yeah. The Spurs game, I actually think the other Spurs game, just because of the nature of it, because of how important a point that was in the season. That was like, see if you were to define the one turning point of the season, that was the turning point of the season, because Teemu Pukki scores that goal, or is awarded that goal, we win that game. We win that game, Teemu Pukki keeps scoring goals, we win more games maybe. You know, that was the point at which the season turned. So, yeah, I think it's been a contrast between the two Spurs games for me. And the other honourable mention I'll give is that Southampton game after the restart, because after the first 7 minutes, Ralph Hasenhüttl made one change, which was wholeheartedly apparent watching on the TV, because you could actually hear what he was saying.
Yeah. And
Norwich City just didn't deal with it. And the fact that we couldn't, it was just that sort of symbolised just how poor we've kind of become at this level, which is bad. I was at Southampton away as well, and that was a really bad night. Yeah. That was a bad night. But yeah, I think that Spurs game, just for the level of frustration, the fact that it felt like an injustice, you know.
It was, yeah.
And that was the one for me that I would pick out as the worst game. Not necessarily the worst performance or the worst in terms of reflecting on the team, but for me, just personally as a Norwich fan, it was the one that I hated the most.
Jacob?
Yeah, well, I do obviously think the Villa thing with all game was dreadful. I can caveat that with the injuries. I just remember Michael McGovern in goal. I think I kind of summarised that game up. And they just took their chances. Southampton away, again, dreadful. But second half, we were better. I can remember us having quite a few chances in the second half. Tottenham away, when we lost 2-1, I remember we came back into the game. And I'm thinking, potentially that was a turning point, because obviously we hadn't picked up a point away, or picked up a point from behind since then. And just the way that ball looped up, I don't know if you remember, it hit Zilman, loops up, and then Son nods the back stick. Hodgey please gives it all. Just like, how has that happened? We were going to win that game. I felt it. Rook had chances, Pukki had a chance, and but for me, the Southampton game took the restart, because the crescendo building up. I think the fans were feeling right. Okay, we've got 5 winnable games here. Not saying we're going to stay up, but we've got a good chance to give it a good old go. And
I'll tell you what, if we had won them as well, like that's a thing to consider. Like if we'd won those 5 games or won 4 and drawn 1, we'd have stayed up.
Yeah, and I don't think those teams had to play well to beat us, which again is the frustrating part. I don't want to keep going over it, but yeah, it's frustrating. So yeah, for me, Southampton, just because there was a build up there, first 5-10 minutes was decent, and then like Hodgey said, Southampton made a slight tweak and we couldn't deal with it, and then it was just appalling, and then follow on probably makes it even worse, to be honest with you.
Okay, signing of the season. I'm going to go for Byron, because I don't think anyone else has had that much of an impact.
I want to know your answer to the last question as well, Joe. I want you to chip in. Do you have a choice for your personal one?
Well, the worst game.
Yeah.
I still think Villa, because although it was early in the season, it was like we've both gone up, right? Both in the Championship last season. We've had completely opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of approach financially this season. Yep. And so badly I wanted them to spend 140 million and just finish bottom. I would have loved it. They've stayed up by a point, so maybe it was worth spending 140 million or whatever it was. But for my money, a point is not really worth that much. But yeah, it was just the manner in which they defeated us, 5-1. The goals were flying in left, right and centre. Yeah, we had injuries, Jacob, you said, but that was the one that annoyed me the most. It ruined my day, put it that way. But yeah, signing of the season, I'm going to go with Byram. I don't know what you lads think.
I probably have to concur, to be honest. Yeah. I think he's been the one, wherever he's been deployed, he's done a job. You're right to raise the questions about his fitness, Jacob, because that's been something that's dogged him throughout his career, sadly. But I think I really remember the period where he was playing on the left, and I actually did, I do a Hodge spot thing on Michael Bailey's Athletic pod, and one of the ones I did, I think maybe the first one, was about the inverted wing backery of Sam Byram and how that added a different dynamic in terms of the balance of the team. So to draw a parallel, I remember Dennis Irwin when he was at Manchester United you'd have Ryan Giggs like total left footer in the left wing, and then Irwin would like to kind of tuck in, and Byram gave us a different kind of vibe happening on the left hand side of the field at that point, and obviously decent at right back as well. Good player for the squad, good pro, and yeah, best signing we've had.
I remember Byram having quite a lot of chances to score as well and just never scoring. But yeah, Jacob, signing of the season.
Yeah, obviously Byram was fantastic. I remember being at the Liverpool game when he went in, got injured, and I was just gutted for him, and you could see how gutted he was. Because he got up to that standard, hadn't he? And like Hodgey said, he displaced Jamal Lewis, which is no mean feat at all, because Jamal has been Mr. Consistent at Norwich. I'm going to put a spanner in the works just because, and it's not for the player himself, but the impact he's had on the other player, and that's Ralph Fairbairn.
I think, good one.
So I think he's upped Timbrell's game to the next level for me.
Yeah, no, do you know something? Stuart Webber, you're in good company, because Stuart Webber said the exact same thing on my podcast. Like when I was kind of grilling him about the recruitment, he said that having a goalkeeper of that quality has just helped Tim raise his level. And Tim Krul's it's sad because you pointed out the stark number of goals we've conceded this season. Imagine we didn't have Timmy Krul. It'd be really bad.
All right, let's finish on a high then. Best goal. I'll give you a second to think about it. I'm going to go with Teemu Pukki's volley against Newcastle.
Yeah. No, unquestionably the best goal this season.
Well, there's only 26 to choose from, so it's not hard.
Or like for emotional reasons, the equaliser at Spurs in the Cup.
Yeah, that was good. A lot of us there to celebrate it as well. It was good fun.
And I'd say Lewis against Leicester, just for the technique. As soon as I left his foot, that was in. And again, that was the emotion. It was like, okay, we're back in it here. I know we're still, but again, the boys put in a fantastic display. And it was just great, I know Matt Tarrant's cross was so overhit, but it's one academy prospect to the other. And it's like, this is what Norwich City's about. This is the whole thing, kind of just put it all in place. And that's Norwich in a nutshell, that goal. Because it was Godfrey as well. I don't know if you remember the spray ball. And Aaron's beating England fullback and currently touted 60 to 80 million Chilwell. But I doubt that. But yeah, again, the ball in. Lewis, wonderful. Yeah, perfect that goal for me.
Oh, well, that's a really good choice. It's the technique, the fact he was cutting inside as well. It really showed how. I sometimes think Jamal doesn't let his technique. He doesn't express himself technically maybe as much as he could. I still think he's quite a defensive, which by the way I suppose is no bad thing for a defender, but you think of modern fullbacks or wing backs, they're like, it's all about what you do going forward. Like since Dani Alves, it's all about that. But Jamal's kind of old school in that mode, so to see him doing something where he really showed off like his technical prowess was really nice. So yeah, you're right, that was a lovely moment.
Yeah. Just before we sign off, Hodgey, I mean, I've spoken to Jake about this on previous pods, but I just want to get your opinion on the new lads we've signed.
Mm-hmm.
Does it excite you? Are you excited by any of the signings, or we've spent a fair bit of money by our standards, to be fair.
Yeah, McCallum, I know they're very, very excited about. I think they think. I'm surmising here, but I think the idea is to have players that are ready to step in. So, say Max Aarons and Jamal Lewis go. You've got Mumba, and then you've got two fullbacks that are ready to kind of fill in there. And I think that's the methodology behind those. The ones that really excite me though are Sorensen, who I think looks like, everything I've seen makes him just look like a really, really exciting prospect, like a proper modern. I hate the cliche of box-to-box midfielder, but he seems to be that one that he can break up play and he can get on stuff at the other end, can pass a ball as much as the modern game allows you. He can put a tackle in. I think I'm really excited about him. And City as well, I think is going to be... I'm interested. I'm intrigued by that one. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I think that's who I would pick out of the ones. And then there's some prospects in there as well. And I think that's the thing with since Stuart Webber's come in, is at every level of the club now, we have good players, like under 23s or in the youth team or whatever. It's like we keep getting players in that, they might not all make it in Norwich City, but the thing is, what they're doing is they're helping to increase the quality of the collective, which means there's more chance of yielding more first team prospects from the kind of youth academy crop and stuff like that. So I'm quite excited by the nature of the recruitment, and I think we're far from done. I think there's a lot more to come yet.
Yeah, agreed. Right, Stuart, thanks for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have you got anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Twitter if you want, at Hodgey the Hack, Hodgey the Hack, THAHACK. That was easy for me to say. And I've also got my own podcast as well, which is at My Corona Pod on Twitter as well. But if you follow one, then the other shall appear. And yeah, I've got like some ideas in the works that I might reveal to the world soon. But yeah, for now, that's the best way to get me.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. Jacob, anything to add before we go?
No, just thanks very much, Hodgey, for coming on. Obviously, you got limited time and all that. Very busy man. We really appreciate it. We look forward to hopefully having you on again in the future, speaking about the positive Norwich City in the Championship.
I'd love to, lads. Like, genuinely, let's see where we are come Halloween, and depending on how scary things are looking, then I might come on at some point in the new season. But no, thank you very much for having me, lads. One of the things that's brilliant about being a sort of Norwich City fan and like someone that does kind of media stuff and that is the fact that there is such a plethora of brilliant Norwich City content out there, and you guys are part of that tapestry. So thanks for having us on, man.
Likewise, so are you. But yeah, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah.